Welcome to the Develop Great Managers podcast, where you can learn directly from the experts. I'm Dale Ferrario, your host. For more information and valuable insights, go to developgreatmanagers.com. Now, on to the show. Hi, and welcome back to Develop Great Managers. This is the third of 3 podcasts on politics. This one is going to be about how to manage your team. Here, as always, is my fair use disclaimer. Take a look. Now back to my list of the 3 topics we cover for office politics. The first one was introduction. The second one, how to be successful, and it was all about you. And today, it's all about you as a manager and how to manage your team. As always, I want to start with a quote. A good manager doesn't try to eliminate conflict. He tries to keep it from wasting the energies of his people. When you're the boss and your people disagree openly when they think that you're wrong, that's healthy. And this is by Robert Townsend. And I really love this one because once you're the boss, so often the team will not really tell you what they think. They'll kind of hold it in. And I've told my team so many times, come on guys, if I'm doing the wrong thing, tell me. Even as open as I've tried to be, I know there are times when they think that I should be doing something different. And I have to constantly pull and say, please let me know. Help me. It's really, we're trying to do the same thing. We're all in this together. So if you see me doing something wrong or something you think I should do differently, let me know. I really think that's the best thing we can do to keep our team engaged and working with us and being open with us. Okay, now for the topics for today. First, a very quick refresher on the introduction. We talked about the definition of office politics. We talked about the reality of office politics. We talked about a spectrum of good and bad. And then we went through a number of examples. Quick refresher on last week about being successful. We talked about reading the system. We talked about building a good reputation. And we talked about finding common ground. Now for today, we're going to cover be a good role model, minimize the politics in your team, support and align with the company culture, champion members of your team, recognize and support diversity, and provide positive transparency. So let's talk a little bit about being a role model. We all know role models. We just happen to have lost a good role model in Kobe Bryant, and there's so much talk about why he was a good role model. A good role model demonstrates competency and leadership. A good role model is not afraid to be unique. They communicate and interact with everyone. They show respect and concern for others. They're knowledgeable and well-rounded. They have humility and a willingness to admit mistakes. And they do good things both at the company and outside of the company. Now, a little bit about minimizing politics within your team. And there's a whole bunch of areas here that I want to cover. The first one is about hiring. Hire the right people. Find the people that have the right kind of ambition. Align your team. Make sure that you align your team with a clear vision and supporting goals. Be fair. Treat everyone fairly. Have zero tolerance. No tolerance for divisive behavior. Now, oftentimes, this one catches you in a high-tech company. We seem to be okay to allow a person who's incredibly smart to be divisive. It isn't worth it. It isn't worth them being that smart if they are going to create problems within the team. Just show no tolerance. If that comes up, you got to go after it. You got to stop it. That stopping it can be a direct conversation with them. That stop it can be moving them into another organization or letting them go, but do not allow this to continue. Be open and honest. Make sure that you're communicating as much as you possibly can. Now, there are always times as a manager where there are some things that you can't say. And when you talk about topics, you need to make sure that you stay aligned with the company's vision and the company's mission and goals, but be as open and honest as you can. And then the last one is discuss different approaches. Discuss political issues. Discuss what's going on within the company. Discuss where there are challenges. Discuss ways that you can work through the challenges together. The more you do this, the more you're going to expose your team to the politics and the system that exists, the more they're going to be able to be successful in the future. Now, I talked a little bit about how to build your own good team and all the things you need to do around politics. But I want to say one other thing about aligning and supporting the company culture. You're either with us or you're against us. If you don't support the company culture, you need to go someplace else. It's not okay as a manager. It's not okay for anybody, but it's especially not okay as a manager to not align to the company culture. That is part of your job. Now, a really big one in dealing with politics is making sure that you do a good job of championing your team. Check in with them frequently. Ask them how you're doing and ask them what you can do to help. If you offer to help them, do it. Don't come out and say, "Can I help you?" and then not follow through. If you offer the help, you need to do it. Go beyond what's just on the surface. Dig into the details enough that they really believe that you care about what they're doing. Share your thoughts and ask for their thoughts. Find ways to orchestrate wins. Now, this is something that you can do externally incredibly well. Find small wins that you have and communicate them. Celebrate those wins. This might seem a little unusual when you first get started, but look for things that you can celebrate and celebrate them broadly. And a part of orchestrating those wins is making sure that you communicate them outward to peers and to the leadership. As you think about your team, make sure that you provide them with projects and tasks that'll help them to grow. Give them time for the development that they need. This is always hard to do because you've always got aggressive dates or commitments that you've made, but you have to find a way to give them enough time to do their development. So make sure you give them that time. And support their career aspirations. Sometimes supporting career aspirations might mean they ultimately leave your group or they leave the company. But make sure that you understand what those aspirations are and support them. On this topic of supporting their careers, I really like something that Reid Hoffman has talked about. Now, Reid Hoffman started LinkedIn. And one of the things he said is when he interviews somebody, he asks them, what is the job that you're going to want to have when you leave LinkedIn? Now, this is during an interview to be hired into LinkedIn. Why is he asking that question? He really wants to understand where that person wants to go, and he wants to make sure that he's helping them get there. Now, there's a good chance that he will be able to, through that process, keep them at LinkedIn longer than he would have otherwise because he's aware of where they want to go, and he's helping them find those opportunities. So maybe that's something that you can do is say, where do you want to go? Where would you go if you left the company? What kind of role would you want? And maybe that will help you to think about how you can help your employee to develop the skills that they're looking for. Now, recognize and support diversity. Diversity improves a team's ability to solve problems. Now, this isn't just me talking. This is research talking. You get a diverse group of people together, you will get better solutions. There's never just one way to solve a problem. Each person's unique problem-solving approach, when you blend them together with different backgrounds, you will produce a better result. And this came from McKinsey & Company. So supporting diversity is not just a good thing to do anyway. It will result in your team being better. So do it for two reasons. Diversity is the right thing, and diversity will produce a better result. Now on to positive transparency. It's easy to say that managers should be transparent. Communicate what you know and what you hear to your teams. But that's not really always the right approach. And people go, "What? Wait a minute, what? I want to know everything." I think it's incredibly important, but you have to provide the right context. Your job as a manager is to fit what you talk about into a larger narrative, into the company's culture, into the company's vision and mission. So just think about that really carefully. So I gave a couple of examples earlier about company reducing investment, organizations being merged. Think about those changes and put them into the right context as you describe them. Don't immediately think of it as, oh, it's a political thing. Try to understand what happened, why it happened, and why it's the right answer, and then present all that back. Then communicate that back to your team. If you do it in that way, you're being open and honest, but you're also helping them to understand more about the context, and you're helping them to deal with how the system works, and you're making sure that they're prepared to be successful within that system. So let me talk about an example. And this is an example, again, that's very near and dear to my heart. And it was about changing the status quo to deliver an innovation. Now, the nice thing is this was done within a company that's open to change. It's open to innovation. But even at that, it's still challenging. So let me talk about that innovation. First of all, let me talk about the status quo. The status quo was the company had an existing traditional support model, a break-fix support model. The company had a very high net promoter score. The organization had a customer-first leader with a tremendous amount of support from the executive staff. It was a large, worldwide, well-trained organization, very committed to delivering a great support experience. It was struggling to scale with the complexity of the new products that were being delivered. And ultimately, it was very expensive to scale it in that traditional model. The innovation was to really move from a reactive support model to a proactive support model. And it was going to be based on collecting a tremendous amount of telemetry data. That telemetry data could then be used with machine learning to provide customers with issues that they needed to fix before those issues impacted their software. It required change in the workflow for all of the support organization. It potentially put the Net Promoter Score at risk, while at the same time it could have made the Net Promoter Score even better. It was uncomfortable for the leader. This customer-first leader was not a technologist. It was very well aligned with the new products that were coming, and it was inexpensive to scale. So as the company was growing, the amount of investment they would need to make in the support organization would scale more effectively. So how did we drive that change? We drove that change by connecting with key influencers. Now, this was primarily executives, but we spent a lot of time building those relationships previously, and then using those relationships and using what they cared about the most to understand what this new technology would do and how it would dramatically improve the experience for our customers and deal with a less expensive model for scaling. And most importantly, we worked directly with the CEO. And the CEO happened to love innovation and really wanted to change the model for how we were engaging with our customers. We needed the whole team to get involved in this process. So there was a lot of sharing of information on how the conversations were going, on additional conversations, on actually influencing the influencers so that when they were talking to their leaders, they were hearing the same story. We did all of this and ultimately got the support to deliver this innovation. So that just gives you a sense for a little bit of the personal, a lot of how the team worked, and how you can make a very innovative change after you understand the system and you engage in driving that change through the processes, both formal and informal, that exist. So there you go. Again, that was a lot of information. Let's talk a little bit about what will you do differently tomorrow after listening to this podcast. And I have 3 this time. Spend time with your team, aligning on the vision, the mission, and the goals. Make sure everybody's on the same page. Identify divisive behavior. Address it, right? 0 tolerance. And put in place a plan to increase the diversity of your team. Maybe you've already got a diverse team, but I suspect most people don't. And think about how you're going to change your hiring and bring in a more diverse group so that in the end you have a better result. So there you go. I hope this was all useful. Thanks for listening. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard, there are more podcasts available on developgreatmanagers.com, on iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you have time, please post a comment, or better yet, please write a review. Talk to you in the next podcast.